book I just came across. Got it off Amazon by The First 1,000 Years of Zen Teachings, 9 Sutras by Red Pine. And Red Pine, of course, is a well-known author who has an interesting history. So he was born in 1943. He's now 78. And went to, I guess during the Vietnam War era, he was in the army. And got into Buddhism in 1972 or so. Then studied in monasteries in Taiwan. And he wrote a book called Road to Heaven, which I read maybe 20 years ago. When it came out, I saw it in the bookstore, and it was interesting. He was interested to see if there were any traditional monks practicing in the old mountain area of Chinese mountains where the monks traditionally hid out in the caves and whatnot. And he did find a few who had survived the Cultural Revolution and the communist purging. And he wrote a book called Amongst White Clouds, which inspired... No, his book was called Road to Heaven. Then that book inspired someone to make a documentary in 2005 called Amongst White Clouds. And that's available on DVD, I believe. I got a copy of it, where someone followed his travels and found some of the monks and got them on film. Anyway, he's done quite a few works here. He's sort of like a Thomas Cleary, you know. The Lankavatara Sutra and a book on Bodhidharma, probably. I don't know if they're the best known, but he started off with poetry translations, 1983, of the Ox Herding Pictures, and then the Cold Mountain Poems, and the Zen Teaching of Bodhidharma. That was probably the first book I got of his in 1987. Then Road to Heaven was about his trip to the Chinese Hermit Mountains, 1993. So this is an interesting idea to say, okay, in the first 1,000 years of Zen or Chan, let's collect the key texts in chronological order, covering 1,000 years. So what are these texts? They are, see, the Heart and Diamond Sutra. So the Heart Sutra, he's saying, comes first. Then the Vimalakirti Sutra, Lankavatara, Bodhidharma, and this is one I relate to, the Sing San, Trusting the Mind, or Shin Shin Ming. And then the Platform Sutra, we know. And Song of Enlightenment, and then Wang Bo, who was the teacher of Rinzai, the one who beat him with a stick every time he came. I think that's the one. Rinzai was told to go ask his question to Wang Bo, and Wang Bo would beat him with a stick. And he said something like, every time I went to see Wang Bo, he showed me grandmotherly kindness and beat me with a stick. So Red Pine says, 50 years ago when I first started reading about Zen, D.T. Suzuki's Manual of Zen Buddhism was a constant companion. It included the recorded words of Zen teachers, as well as those of the Buddha, from which Zen took root. This book is an homage, a belated thank you for the gift. An homage to D.T. Suzuki, I guess. So then he says, beginning with the Heart and Diamond Sutra was an easy decision. They are the first two sutras I read. It took a lot longer than I expected before I began to understand them. They look so simple, and they are, which is always a problem. What slowed me down was their teaching, known as Prajnaparamita, a teaching that points to our mind before we learn how to divide the indivisible. And the Heart Sutra has an interesting history, which I never knew about. It comes from Xuanzang, the famous traveler who, on the journey to the West, who left China in 600 something AD and traveled for some 16 years, and I think he went to the Nalanda University, and he met Vasubandhu, the abbot of Nalanda, if I'm not mistaken, and got teachings which he brought back on several tens of pack animals somehow, brought them all the way back to China, and spent the rest of his life translating them. And he was given this Heart Sutra to chant for protection. And one story says he was given it when he helped a monk, the beggar monk. The monk gave him the sutra to chant as a thank you gift. And Xuanzang says it protected him during his travels. So everybody in every Zen center in the world right now is chanting this multiple times a day. Even right now, someone is, no doubt, many thousands of seekers are chanting it. And so he has maybe a 4 or 5 page introduction. I don't know if he talks about the history per se. Talks about the concept of emptiness and Prajnaparamita. Let's see. So I haven't actually read any of this yet. I just got it. But I thought it was quite a nice idea to have, this is a lightweight, you could take this hiking. It's a small format, and it opens easily, and it's not a heavy book by weight, and you can get a feel for 1,000 years of tradition of seeking and finding and trying to express the journey. See, this book is made to be carried with you. So it's like a traveling book. And he was a traveler in China for the Red Pine. So it covers the middle of the 2nd century BC to the middle of the 9th century AD. So it would make a great study book and traveling book. Because this one is, of course, very interesting. The version I first saw is probably quite different translation, but what appeals to me about it is it's completely, it has no mythological references like to deities like Avalokiteshvara, or things like emptiness, or esoteric Sanskrit terms. So it's very timeless in a way. It's very Taoist also. And you wouldn't even know, is it necessarily Buddhism? Is it, it made me just, but it's faith in mind. To set up what you like against what you don't like is the disease of the mind. So he says, fighting over sides is an illness of the mind. Whereas the other translation says, to set up what you like against what you don't like is the disease of the mind. So he has boldface maybe it's in a chanting format. To return to the root is to find the meaning. Returning to the root, you find the meaning. Chasing the light, you end up confused. Reflect on this right now. Better now than before it's all empty. Oh, no need to look for the truth, just put an end to views. Now this is the key phrase for any Westerner. If you would, another way to put it I've heard that I like is, do not search for the truth, merely cease to cherish opinions, which is very offensive in a way to the Western intellect, but what they're saying is, if you would search for the truth, examine your opinions and discard them one by one. When you find, if you thoroughly go through all your opinions and see how you're clinging to them and stop clinging, then the truth apparently is revealed. So there's no need to look for the truth, just put an end to views. But I would like to boldface that and maybe use the original to do not search for the truth, merely cease to cherish opinions. It's this attachment teaching that's always true.